Welcome to another episode of Leadership Lab by Dr. VK. In the previous episode, we're talking about the problem that African leaders have, especially the young people, where we discussed that there's a leadership preparation deficit across the African continent. And we're talking about why that is a problem. And in this episode, we want to talk about the accidental leader, because I do believe that leadership can come at any time, which is why it is imperative for you to be ready at any given point in time. So this is a platform where we are raising authentic, ethical, and real African leaders. So welcome and stay with us. One time my niece was getting married, and the day before the wedding, I went to her room and I asked her, I said, "Are you ready to get married?" She looked at me and said, "Auntie, is it really possible for one to get ready?" That response triggered something in me to say, how does one know that they are ready for anything for that matter? And for me, I discovered that at that point, readiness or preparation for something is not something that you can do. You cannot do ready. Just like you cannot do happiness. You just become happy. You're just happy. Or you're just ready. But there are specific things that must be satisfied for you to certify yourself to be ready or to be prepared for something. So one of the greatest challenges that Africa has is that people do not really prepare for leadership. So for example, a very simple example, you belong to a village group of women or even men, and then you go to a meeting, maybe you meet every month, and then the chairperson announces that, the treasurer has stepped down, maybe they've moved to another city or something has happened, they had to step down from their position. And then suddenly somebody nominates your name and then boom, you are the treasurer of the group. Did you really prepare for that? So you see, leadership can come at any time. You're working in an institution, somebody resigns, somebody dies, God forbid, but these are things that happen to us as people. People die. So somebody dies and suddenly there's a vacancy, or you see a vacancy in the newspaper, or somebody is promoted, so somebody has to fill their position. How are you prepared for those kind of opportunities? Because opportunities are going to come. The problem is sometimes opportunities will come from the most unlikely place, in the most unlikely time. You're not prepared that this is going to happen. Today you go to work as an officer and then you're coming out as a manager. So what that tells us is that at any given point in time, you have to be ready to take up a leadership position. For me, for example, there was an election and then a new government was ushered in, and then suddenly I'm appointed as deputy minister. Did I think that one day I'm going to be appointed as a deputy minister? Absolutely not. But it happened. So what happens? You just step in. So when you're an accidental leader, that's where the problem comes in. That acquisition of power can go to your head, and then it can disturb everything if you're not prepared. So you can see that sometimes leadership becomes sophisticated or complex, especially when people are not prepared. So for example, myself, my first serious job, so I applied for a position, and then 2 weeks after I started work, my boss decided that they were going to keep me permanently. And so I was given a project officer position, but I wasn't given a portfolio. So I was a project officer without portfolio, if you can call it that. And then 3 months down the line, the project had ended. I needed to go, but because they had decided that I'm going to stay on, I needed to have a portfolio, something that I was overseeing. And that's another thing. So maybe before I go ahead with that story, is that sometimes leadership is not about technical competences. The most talkative member of parliament may not necessarily become the best cabinet minister. The most skilled singer may not necessarily be the choir director. The most skilled doctor may not necessarily be the hospital director. So it means, therefore, that leadership goes beyond your technical competences. So your technical skills may get you through the door, but what sustains you is something else totally different. Your integrity, how you treat people, how you look at other things over and above the technical or the skills that you require, how you manage people skills, your personality, your character. Those are the things that now will ground you or sustain you, especially when the going gets tough. Because leadership is all about decision making And as you get there, you're going to make as many decisions as possible. Some of them are going to be right ones. You're going to make the right calls. But sometimes you're going to get to make the wrong decisions. And as a leader, you must be able to pick up those pieces and say, I am taking the fall on behalf of the entire team. I made the wrong call. And then you move on. Now, so I was there. I don't really have a portfolio. So my boss would come today and say, oh, okay, you're a program manager responsible for strategy. And then after 2 months, oh no, I was in a meeting. We found you a perfect position. Now you're partnerships and liaison, because they had seen someone with a tag, program manager for partnerships and liaison. Why they had given me that position is because at that time, even as young as I was, coming fresh out of college, I had a network, a very, very long, healthy network, social network. So almost in each organization that had something to do with us, I either knew someone or I knew someone who knew someone in that institution. So they used to call me the connection power. So if they want a meeting with the MD of a certain company, it's either I knew the secretary there, or I knew the project manager there, or I knew someone whose brother works there, or something like this. And I'll get the things done. So this is why the first 2-3 weeks of my stay in that institution, my boss wanted to keep me there. And it so happened that I have had about 2 or 3 jobs that I had not applied for, but because they had decided that they needed me in their institution as an addition. And I remember getting a job for which I didn't apply. So I go for an interview for one position, and then I don't get that position, but I get a call from the HR to say the MD wants to meet you, or the boss wants to meet you. And I go there and they say, we know that you didn't get this job that you had applied for, but we still want to have you in our institution. So I got that job and I had to do my own job description. It has happened to me, and it happened to me twice, if it's not 3 times, getting jobs for which I had not applied only because I had a certain skill that was beyond my CV. So your CV does nothing to tell people about your competences, and other people, even when they come on an interview panel. I have made decisions before getting the person that was number 3 on the interview. Why? Because I saw something beyond everybody else on the panel, beyond what everybody saw on the panel in that person. Because some people can talk a good game, but give them a job, they will fail dismally. And so I was sitting there. So I got this job because my skill set that was over and above what my CV said, what my qualifications from college said. And I want to speak to that as well today, in that when we stepped our feet in the college that God loves the most, that's Chancellor College, we had a professor called Professor Dixie. In the first week of our orientation, he started speaking to us, and he said to us to say, I am going to make you irresistible to any employer you're going to meet after you leave this college. And he really indeed made it happen. So much so that it worked for me. The very first interviews that I had, where I appeared, he said, the mistake that your bosses or your would-be bosses would make is to invite you for an interview. Because once they invite you for an interview, they will not let you go. They would want to have you. It happened to me. It can also happen to you. So what are those things that would happen to you? So I'll be articulating some of those things as we go in the next episodes. But the key thing there that I wanted to show was that your technical competence do nothing to sustain you as a leader. The most skilled person may not necessarily be the best leader that an entity may have. And so you need to understand that when we're talking about technical skills as well, especially in Africa, I was very privileged to have worked as Minister of Labor in Malawi. And one of the things that I discovered especially when I went to do inspections in technical colleges and all of that, was that there was a mismatch. As a matter of fact, this was confirmed when I would sit down with employers, that there's a mismatch between what institutions are producing in institutions of higher learning and what the market needs. So the market is ever changing. Every single week, something is happening. Every month, something is happening. But our education system in Africa is unable to catch up with that. So much so that if you look at any technical college, even you look at the equipment that they are using, is obsolete. The people that manufactured it are no longer making those kind of equipment. And yet those are the equipments that our students are being exposed to. But when you travel across the African continent, you will be shocked and amazed by the level of skill sets that young people in Africa have. So, what is the problem? Why would a continent that has plus or minus 60% of its population being below the age of 35 be one of the poorest in the world? There's something wrong. What is wrong? What is wrong is not because we don't have the skills or we don't have the competences. What is wrong is that fundamentally we don't have a system or the infrastructure that is required for us to absorb that kind of energy that is coming from young people. We don't have systems and procedures in place that is able to look at a young person that has produced something innovative and then be able to support them so that they can scale it up. As they are doing so, you're not building the capacity of them as an individual. They are also creating jobs for other people as well. These shocking statistics, over 100,000 young people were graduating in Malawi every single year. Over 100,000 young people. But if you look at the jobs that are being created on a yearly basis, there may be plus or minus 10, maybe 20,000, all right? Which means, therefore, that there's a gap between the skills that are being developed and the skills that are being utilized eventually within the market space. It means we need to start interrogating or asking ourselves, are we producing the skills that our economy requires? Or are we just producing skills that, are available? So when young people are aspiring to go to colleges or universities or institutions of higher learning, what is moving or what is feeding their demand for those kind of skills? Because if that has not been clearly articulated, there will be a huge problem. We'll be producing skills upon skills that are going to be made obsolete. And what that will be doing is that it will be fueling the growing frustrations among young people. You saw what happened in Kenya, the Gen Z. You saw what happened in Tunisia. Those things can happen anytime, anywhere. We are sitting on a time bomb. So now with the coming in of AI and technology advancements, skills like accounting, AI now is able to do accounting. AI now is able to do investment analysis. AI is even now able to do medical diagnostics at the moment. So which means that the people that had those skills, just those skills, may not be able to find jobs because the machines are going to do that. Computers are going to be doing that for people. However, there are some things that AI may not be able to do because even the machinery that AI uses, is built by people. You still need people to put those pieces together. AI cannot show empathy to people. So there's still going to be a place for humans, but we need to be operating at a system that is able to make us, governments, institutions, to catch up with the advancements that are happening within the market space. And for me, I would want Africa to be at that level where, because if we have 60% of our population being young, that for me is not a disadvantage. It's actually a point of departure for us to catapult us into the place where we have to be, both in agriculture, in the area of tourism, in the area of trade and investment, in the area of medicine, everywhere where we can use this energy that the young people are bringing to put Africa where it belongs. So, like I said, the people that have very beautiful CVs, but those that don't have the skills that are needed will have a very big problem. And those are the leaders that will not be prepared for leadership as we go into the future. Remember, in the last episode, we were talking about if people are not ready to take up leadership positions, if there's a leadership deficit within a leader or in a leader, the institution suffers as much as the person themselves. Because remember, I talked about leadership being a transformational process where you're not just impacting other people. Your leadership also will impact you. There's a transformation process that is happening. Leadership is not an ad hoc thing to say, oh, yesterday I led, tomorrow I'm not leading. It's not a hat that you can wear to say, today I'm a leader, tomorrow I'm just a person. You cannot separate yourself from the leadership role that you have assumed. And so, as a leader, you need to have a heart that forgives. A child can make that decision. Because once the ego of a child has been severed, they would want to hit back. They cannot do that to me. Who does he think he is? I'm the boss here and all that. So That's why you have to be prepared to take up a leadership position. No matter how you assumed that leadership role, I mean, come on, all of us need connections anyway. No matter how you got that job, once you get into that leadership position, you are expected to lead. Just do your job, one job, lead, you know. So, unfortunately, leadership, for you to excel in leadership, you cannot, number one, postpone the lessons, and you cannot get somebody else to learn those things for you. You have to do it on your own. So, some few facts that I wanted to drop in this episode. Number one, the problem that we're having is not that because it's not because people don't have leadership skills. It's because in Africa, we assume that somehow people are just going to know how to lead. So if my father is an MD of a company that he established himself, now because he knows that I'm his daughter, my blood, that the blood that flows into my veins is his, he'll think that I'll automatically know how to lead. That's a mistake. It is a huge mistake because leadership cannot be inherited. Leadership cannot be bought. Leadership cannot be transferred between spouses or between partners or lovers. Leadership must be calculated, must be nurtured intentionally by the person that is assuming it over a period of time. You must put work into it. I have a friend of mine. She just won an award, and she was explaining to me the process that is involved for you to win the award and whatever. And she said something that I thought was really profound. She said, "This year, I wanted it." I want to tell you something. Every time you want something, whether it's a leadership position, whether it's money, whether it's success, whatever it is that you want, you must always ask this question to yourself: how badly do I want it? Because that creates a trajectory that is going to determine the quality of effort that you're going to put into achieving that or attaining that which that you want, that thing that you want. How badly do I want it? When I gave birth to my first child, I gained about 32 kgs. So I moved from a 70 kg person to 102. I was big. I was very, very big. And so I decided that I wanted to shed off that weight after I delivered the baby. And so I tried it. The people that were around me didn't give me a chance. They just said, that's motherhood. Now you have the weight and all that. But I knew it in my heart that the fact that I had given birth doesn't mean that I needed to lose myself or lose my shape or lose, my confidence, the one that I had in my body because I had given birth. I thought that I could have it both. I could have it both ways. A fabulous body that I wanted, but also have a baby. It is very possible. So I wanted it, and I wanted it very bad. So there are two things there. You may want it so bad, but still not be willing to pay the price. And that's what leadership is all about. And I had to pay the price of losing weight and keeping in shape. And for women that have given birth before, or not necessarily given birth, but that have gained weight and want to lose it, it is not easy. Even just to lose 1 kg, it is extremely easy to gain 5 kgs in 1 week. Very, very easy. But to lose 1 kg, even half a kg, it is a lot of work. But I wanted it so bad to an extent that I lost all of it, all the baby fat. And I was weighing at the time 75 kgs. Now I hover between 75 and 80 kgs. But it was something that I had to work for it. And that's the same tenacity with which you need to approach everything that you need to do or that you want to have in this life. Nothing worth having would come easy, will be delivered to you on a platter. As a matter of fact, if you are an accidental leader, a position has just been given to you, you don't really care. You haven't really fought for it. You haven't learned. Remember, in the last episode, we were talking about reading widely, learning the ropes of the role and all of that. You cannot deliver in that position. And so sustainability of any position will be commensurate with the level of preparation that you had prior to you attaining it. I'll give you an example. Sometime when we were kids, we would watch, there used to be this man of God. I think now he's late, Reinhard Bonke. He came to Malawi one time before. And so would watch him on TV, the lame walking and the blind seeing and all that miracles happening. But, a week down the line, would see those people back in their wheelchairs or they're still using their crutches, and then if they were blind, they were allegedly healed, they could see, but last week, now they're no longer seeing. What has happened? I didn't understand what would have happened to them until much, much later in life. And I learned that if you can get a healing, without you understanding, number one, the healer, number two, the process of healing, number two, how these spiritual things work, you cannot sustain your healing. It's the very same thing. You need to understand what leadership is all about. That's why a leadership preparation deficit is extremely important than the lack of leaders themselves. We need to have in Africa leaders that are ready, leaders that are prepared. We need to remove or significantly reduce the leadership preparation deficit in Africa if we have to emancipate ourselves from the shackles of poverty sustainably.